It's the Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling Podcast. My name is Josh, and with me as always, it's Josh. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, what up, peeps? Thanks, man, for the intro. Appreciate that. I always appreciate a Ron Simmons intro.
Yep. Nothing but the best for you, buddy.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that. So, heck of a week in wrestling. Let me just ask you right now. So, CM Punk returns. What's going on, man?
He returns. Did you see the clip?
I saw the clip.
On backstage?
Yeah. It's one of those, it's interesting because I feel like I'm sort of mixed. And it's how like WWE's handling it. They're kind of like saying like, oh, well, we give the graces. That's the thing with Fox. No, you guys are like promoting that.
Yes.
Like you're totally like involved. Like obviously CM Punk's going to work his way back to a part-time status.
Sure.
Which is interesting in itself because, you know, several years before he sort of fought against that, the sort of part-time Rock status. And I sort of called it then like he's going to eventually do that. That's what people do, especially when you're an A-lister like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Sure.
You know, and it's something that he explained to John Cena, and John Cena even admits now that you can't be wrestling all the time. You can be at that level. If you want to do movies and wrestle, it's got to be a very part-time specific status. Because if you get injured, you just costed 100 people their jobs. So I knew CM Punk would come back, and he's coming back in an analyst role. But yeah, I think eventually he'll make his way back into WWE, and they always do. Think about it. Look at history. They always come back. Bret Hart came back. You know, Bruno Sammartino came back. The Ultimate Warrior came back.
Yeah.
You know, CM Punk will come back.
You know, you said it before. It's in here, and I disagreed. I said, no. I think CM Punk is one of those guys that's too stubborn. He'll never come back.
There's money to be made. There's money to be made.
I guess I'm. You know, I guess sides. I'm wrong. I'm really surprised by this. Even though, like you said, that right now it's just an analyst role. But there's going to be something more. Like WWE's already like rubbing their hands together. You know, getting ready for their money.
Well, they're trying to play it cool, like they're at some high school dance. Like, well, I don't know. Does she like me? Well, I don't know. What are they doing? And it's kind of like this whole bit like sort of passive thing. It's come on. Like we all know what's going on here. CM Punk's agent's trying to brokerage the deal because there's a deal to be made. It's a win-win-win situation.
Right.
I think a lot of people have sort of mixed feelings on CM Punk, but at the end of the day, I think everyone can agree CM Punk back in wrestling is a win-win-win. For CM Punk,
right? For
WWE and for the fans.
For the fans, yeah.
Right. Now, this is actually where I mentioned before, I was surprised that AEW, apparently they gave him a really good offer. I was surprised they didn't pull him in, at least like as a general manager. So that way he could still not wrestle, but still have an appearance and sort of still save that, you know, as far as token, that chip of wrestling for AEW or some other organization that paid him the big bucks. So I don't know. I mean, it was interesting. Like I always thought AEW, that would have been the thing to get them around that corner, to have CM Punk involved somehow. But again, officially he works for Fox. But we know SmackDown is the flagship show. The way WWE was as far as like, you know, pushing CM Punk returning to backstage as a way to get people to watch and to also, I mean, they are acknowledging that relationship. They are now acknowledging that relationship after these, you know, several years. So again, I think it's a win-win-win situation, but he will eventually be back in a WWE ring at some point.
He may just be with Fox, but he's right there.
Well, that's again what I'm saying. There's a backdoor thing to this whole situation. Now, I don't think CM Punk's actually probably talking to WWE directly. I'm sure the agent's kind of doing a brokerage deal.
Sure.
At this point, though, I'm sure there's a little more talk right now that he's actually on backstage. He's shown up. He's on film. They've promoted him. I'm sure there's some more talks going on, but I think we always knew we'd get to that. But yeah, again, that was kind of interesting. Well, I'll tell you one other person I don't think maybe in WWE anytime soon, Jordan Myles, ACH.
Ooh, yeah.
That's just a whole situation. It's just horrible all around. Any way you look at it, you know?
Yeah. So anybody not familiar, Jordan Myles released like kind of an expletive-filled video claiming that he's quitting WWE, at least to the extent that he can. I'm sure he's under contract and this and that, but he's not pleased with WWE, and it's understandable. I can understand it. The question is, what do we think? Do you think, is he overreacting or is he justified?
We don't know the whole story. So I would say at first glance, yeah, I think it's justified for what we know, but we don't know the whole story on both sides. So I don't know. To me personally, I think it was initially justified, and I think he's someone that was like going to be a top star. They would not have had him win that tournament, you know, as far as it was taped at a takeover. Yeah. They wouldn't have had that, and as far as pushed him as such, if they didn't see some true promise in him. And plus, again, I've had the benefit living here in Chicago. I've seen tons of ACH matches at Logan Square Auditorium with AAW. And I mentioned before, I saw 60-minute Broadways or as they call them, draws in the business. So Trevor Lee, as he was in the independent circuit, and now of course he's Cameron Grimes in WWE NXT. But I would see matches between those two, and I'm telling you, 60-minute draws. Any match they had would just be awesome, and I got to see that. So I was really pumped to see, as far as ACH go to WWE. So something happened. And obviously, I think the shirt was a huge issue, but I think there's maybe other things that happened.
It feels like there's more to it.
It may just be that the inaction, like maybe it was there wasn't more of an apology. I don't know. To me, I think there was an official apology from WWE that they did pull it and whatnot. But again, we don't know the full story. There may have been something that happened backstage, but I don't know. Me personally, I initially think it was justified. So at this point, I have to feel it's justified. I just have to think that there was something that happened we don't know about.
Yeah. It sounds like there's more to this. The way that he was talking, it sounds like maybe WWE really didn't take this seriously.
Well,
and things like that. I don't know. This is speculation, of course, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. So,
what sucks the most is that we don't get to see him wrestle, and he doesn't get to wrestle.
Yeah,
like I know he loves wrestling. Like again, I've seen him so many times. You know he loves to wrestle, and anyone's watched NXT, watch him wrestle. Everyone knows he loves to do it. That's what he loves to do. So it must be killing him to be having to be doing this, which again, I think it maybe justifies why he's doing it. But it also sucks because it seems like WWE is stockpiling their talent to prevent them from going to AEW, which if you take all the emotion out of it, you take being a fan out of it, from a business standpoint, that does actually make sense. Like if you're Vince McMahon and you want to beat AEW, prevent any talent from leaving, that does make sense. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily right from a moral stance, but if you're talking strictly business, all right, but
it's just short-sighted, isn't it?
It's a move, right? And it does sort of turn everyone into basically pawns. But hasn't this game kind of been that all along?
It has, but I feel that morale hasn't been this low in a very long time.
Yeah,
and I mean, you can look at the cold hard numbers and say yes, of course, it makes sense to keep Luke Harper and Sin Cara even out of the hands of AEW from that standpoint, but. You got to look at like the wrestler, their morale, their relationship with the company, looking ahead. Like from what I understand,
paid to sit at home, but not like to basically be ignored. And not be used.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just, you sit on you literally sit on the shelf.
Right. It's like it's my understanding Vince used to at least have some kind of attitude of if we're not going to use you, we can't use you right now. You're not happy. You're going to bring everybody else down. Then go. But apparently now Vince is, of course, in battle mode, so he doesn't want to let anybody go. But that's just going to hurt him in the long run.
Well, from a business standpoint, it makes sense. But because, I mean, WWE, they got that wall so high, and people they'll always anchor someone back, right? So if someone left on bad terms, CM Punk, and I just explained all of them, like they always come back. So they always have that bargaining chip. Being number one, you always have that foothold. But again, I'm not saying everything's right. I'm just saying this is from a business standpoint. But yeah, it sucks because basically ACH here could be sitting on the shelf for 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how long his contract is. I have to assume someone they had win the tournament, the breakout tournament, they know is going to be around for a while, right? Yeah. So, but again, I think that lends to it. Like all this stuff seemed like this is the greatest thing for ACH. Is his reaction justified? I have to believe it is somehow.
Probably.
And again, this is just purely opinion. I don't know the facts. I don't know the whole story. But I have to believe something happened. It is justified until I know otherwise.
WWE doesn't exactly have the best track record of being inclusive and representing like minorities and other groups very well. So
yeah,
I tend to definitely just automatically side with Jordan Myles here just because of what we've seen in the past. I mean, So I say more power to him. I hope that maybe this shines a light on things at WWE and, can push some more change here. I mean, this is absurd. The thing with Hulk Hogan, they're just acceptance of just washing away whatever, things like that throughout the years. It's piled up, and now I think it's really going to start to bite them in the ass.
Well, I think one thing people aren't talking about is how did the shirt get that far along in the process without someone saying, what the F is this?
I'm honestly,
sorry. Like that's the first thing. I saw that I was like, wow, that's awfully disgusting.
I just think they're that tone deaf,
and I don't care. I know originally it was on a white T-shirt, but even then I've been like, or like when they printed off, they printed off these shirts. No one thought this is really weird. Like to me, it's just like, come on. So that's where it's like maybe that's a hang up with Jordan Myles ACH, but like I don't know, man. Like to me, it was just it was disgusting all along. And there's got to be something going on we don't know, but we can only speculate at this point. But Again, when you really break it down, I hope lessons are learned from this. I hope that things are ironed out on as far as many fronts. But most importantly, I really hope that ACH gets back to wrestling. And albeit if it's not WB, hopefully it's Logan Square Auditorium. Hopefully it's with some federation he wants to be and deserves to be. But I'm telling you, this guy is pure talent. When you take away all as far as the clickbait, take away all as far as publicity, all the social media crap that's going on with this, he is one hell of a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
He is one hell of a pro wrestler, and I know he knows it. And I just hope they get back to letting him do that. So again, whether it's WBE, which isn't likely at this point, or some other federation, but again, there seems to be this whole stockpiling thing. But hey, we've got the Wednesday Night Wars. That's what's going on. Things are in full gear. That was pretty good, huh? That was pretty good segue. Did you see that?
Good segue. I like that.
Yeah,
Kicking it
or
into
as
full
Jim
gear.
Ross saying fully loaded. I'm like, no, that was like an old in your house paper.
Yeah.
I was like, oh
boy.
But hey, that was all right though. It's all good. I mean, hey, it's okay to make mistakes.
It's okay, JR. We love you, JR.
It makes us all human. It was just when he said that, I was like, oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It almost made me want to go to the network and watch it. But I was, I don't know. Hey, what? So let's get right to it. Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley. What do you think, man?
Talk about a controversial, divisive match in the community here, You got a lot of people saying it's not for them, or that this level of violence is uncalled for in this day and age. They didn't tell a good story. It shouldn't have been this big theatrical thing based on the storyline. It didn't make sense. All these things. For me personally, I loved it. I like over-the-top matches. We're talking about a match that had a board of mouse traps, barbed wire, chains, being choked with chains, broken glass. And they top it off with a Phoenix.
Renee Young was used at one point too, right?
They brought Renee Young in, and
I made that up. No, she wasn't.
Threw her into Jon Moxley.
We're gonna get rumors started. No, that didn't actually happen. I'm a lying sack of crap. Sorry, go ahead.
But and they topped it off with the Phoenix Splash onto the exposed wood after Jon Moxley literally tore the ring apart, part of it off. I mean, I thought that was a real barn burner, as JR would say.
Here's the thing. I think that if Tony Khan made them do this, then F you, dude. However, if Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega said this is what we want to do, then power to you, and I'm okay with it.
I mean,
we're all big boys and girls.
Yeah.
We're not forcing you to do that. And the other thing I would say to this is that if you're going to do a match like this, I mean, I would have dragged your storyline out another 2 or 3 months. And this is actually a problem I've had with AEW a little bit, is they need to squeeze as much of that juice out of each storyline as possible. Right. You think about Daniel Bryan's arc, like that's been going on since Roman Reigns almost got hit by the production stuff.
Oh, yes.
Remember that? That this whole arc of Daniel Bryan's been going on that long. Like WWE does a really good job of just squeezing all that juice out, because you invest your time with the writers, with production, and I think you got to really take your time with that. You look at MJF, that turn was very predictable, which I loved the match. As far as Cody Rhodes and Jericho, I loved the match, but the finish was so predictable. I knew obviously Jericho would go over, and when MJF came out, I knew there'd be a heel turn. It was they should have squeezed more of that out. It's kind of like we sort of always expected it, and when it happened, it was like, yeah, so okay, great. MJF is a better heel, I will say.
Sure.
But here's the thing, like we all expected it. They should have dragged that out a little further. Same situation with Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho. It's almost like they bumped each other backstage, and it's like, oh, that's it. You're going through glass. You're going through barbed wire.
Instant 0 to 60.
And so I know that they had a bit of a storyline where Jon Moxley is just sort of a loose cannon, believes Kenny Omega is the guy and wants the top of the mountain type situation. But to me, there should have been more. If it's not promos, maybe other tag matches they could have built up for it, since they do involve a lot more action than just promos. That's just kind of AEW style. Or they should have just dragged it out a little longer, just had an actual one-on-one match, or maybe have a slight variation to it or something. I just felt like they went from 0 to 100 with this match. But again, at the end of the day, I respect what they did. If this is what they wanted to do, okay, awesome. Wow, that's some serious prowess. But to me, I just felt like there should have been more build up for a huge match. But then it's a double-edged sword, because it's like, I know what they put their bodies through. So again, I respect them.
Yeah, there's no right way to do it necessarily. But I get what you're saying about kind of teasing things out, taking your time a little bit more. So
let us enjoy the ride,
Yeah, I mean, especially we're talking about keeping records of losses and wins, and it matters. You would think that would be something they would call upon, and they say, oh, if you look back, he's lost to Omega this many times, and they've had this long-standing thing going on. You want to try and start creating these long-term storylines, because the Federation is new.
It adds more beef to the match too.
Yeah, of course you can pull off of existing histories of all these wrestlers. People know who Jericho is and Omega. They know what they've done. But for AEW, you want to start building these long rivalries, and it seems like we're like 7 weeks into Dynamite, and allegedly Cody Rhodes is just entirely out of the picture for the championship for AEW. Like he said he's not going to challenge anymore.
I actually think that's a good thing.
That is a good thing, but it's just like so quick. Like we've had 7 weeks of Dynamite, and then it's just like, oh well, Cody Rhodes is just out, and
he's not necessarily out, but he just can't contend for the world title.
He can't contend for the title, but
I think that's good because everyone realizes he's the VP, and he's got to do VP stuff, and so
it makes sense. I get it, and it's a good idea. It's just kind of like, well, that was quick. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, and I think you're right when you think about just Dynamite. You're right. It's like 7 weeks, but I guess I'm trying to think back to all the way to like All In,
okay.
When technically that's when sort of all this started.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But you're right. Like as far as actual congruency,
right?
Yeah, it's sort of Dynamite kind of kicked everything. Well, yeah. I guess for the most part, but yeah.
I don't know. It's just I kind of judge the weekly show by like this is kind of like the real start of the ongoing storyline. You know what I mean?
Did you catch the ratings for this past week? I didn't actually.
I did not.
Well, because that's the thing is like the ratings have been declining.
Okay.
However, they've been still beating NXT week over week, but I don't know the most recent if the ratings have been released.
I believe they're still beating them, and from what I understand, the network's actually very, very happy with the numbers even then.
Yep.
Because it's just much more than they expected.
Yeah, but you still don't want things declining. That's the thing; it is declining. So you don't want that.
You got to look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's they have a good following, and it's the fans that really make the show. Like the fans are really with it.
They're very invested.
Really behind it, and they want to see that alternative. And I think that is because they acknowledge everything. They don't try to hide the fact of a chant. They don't try to, as far as edit boos and stuff like with Seth Rollins. It's like they just let the fans do what they want to do. A perfect example when Jack Swagger came out, "We the people," and Jericho's like, "That's stupid. It's bad creative. We're killing it now." And everyone started cheering, and we never heard it since. And I'm like, that was Jericho's a genius. He knew he says things like that, comes out with big pants. People are going to respect him because everyone's like sort of tired of that. Yeah. And he's coming out and acknowledging like, hey, there are other universes. We're not the only wrestling federation.
Yeah.
We're the best, but there are other federations, Right. So just that kind of acknowledgement, That's like key. You're not like in a bubble, which is kind of cool,
Right.
Although I think it would be cool. Like Kenny Omega is currently the AAA champion, right? I think it'd be cool if he actually carried that title to the ring.
Oh, that'd be cool.
There must be some contractual thing they couldn't work out, but to me, it's like, that's what wrestling should really be, is like, that's a big deal. To hold a AAA world title.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. It's also, I think, officially the biggest title in all of wrestling. Like, not like necessarily like big, but as more in like size.
Oh,
it's just a huge title, right?
Yeah,
like, I think you got to give like the WWE belt sort of like the most weight, just given everything. But I mean, that's the thing is like other federations can live up to that. It's interesting. You kind of, when I sort of watch a show, I believe at that moment that world champion is the best. Like when I watch NWA Power. I believe Nick Aldis carrying the 10 pounds of gold, that's the thing is like, I really believe he's the crap. And then when I watch like, AEW, I'm like, yep, Jericho, he is the boss, man. He knows he's worked his way to that position, So I it's actually weird. There's so much wrestling going on. I'm getting things confused now, to be honest.
So
I just finished up AEW, and so I'm watching wrestling, and all of a sudden I hear Tony Nese comes out. I'm like, wait, Tony Nese is on AEW? And I realized, oh wait, I was like watching like NXT and stuff, and I'm like, oh gosh, like everything's running together now.
Oh wow,
there's so much wrestling, but hey, it's a good problem to have. But yeah. So back to AEW, man. Like, how do you think it's going? Kind of status check. Like overall, how do you think it's going?
I think that they are still going through the growing pains as expected, but they're on the right track. I'd say. I mean, the audience is there. You know what I mean? Like
that's a huge part of it.
Like the people in live there, and then the people watching. Now here's my problem is I don't have cable, so I'm really waiting for them to get some kind of way for me to access AEW content to give them my ratings, basically.
Yeah.
And I can't.
So how does that work? Because like that's actually a good question. So like with because there's the Nielsen ratings, but then I think nowadays they also track like DVR recordings, if I'm not mistaken.
I think, and Hulu and things like
Hulu,
that.
And then like I guess if you watch it through your cable provider, like on demand or something, that counts. So
yeah, they're trying to do that. unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. So I actually have to pirate every episode of Dynamite.
We got to cut this out.
It's a real bummer.
Shit! We got to cut this out.
It's a real bummer because I can't regularly access the show, and give them my ratings. It's a real bummer. So that's the thing, people talk about declining ratings and stuff. It's like a lot of people just don't have cable. A lot of people just don't access the content in such a way,
Yep.
So I think keeping that in mind, they're doing pretty well. I'm happy. I'm really happy. I'm happy as a clam every time I watch it.
Well, that's the thing. I get excited to watch AEW. I get excited to watch NXT. I'm kinda excited to watch SmackDown. I haven't been excited to watch Monday Night Raw. It just sucks to think that way. Like Monday Night Raw for the longest time was like the flagship, which now it is of course, WWE is acknowledging SmackDown Friday night is like the flagship.
Now it is,
flagship, right? Yeah. So, but I don't know. It's sad. It's just kind of like Monday Night Raw is that sort of like senior that was like really awesome in high school, and then like you go back a year later and he's just kind of down on his luck and nothing's really happening, and it's just like what he used to be, it's like
it peaked years ago,
and it's tough to think that way. It's just like, man, like I wish they could. Why not have 2 flagship shows, and if you have to have a B show, why not make it like an A- show?
You would think.
Right.
But
that's the thing. I'm excited Wednesday night, like the Wednesday Night Wars. I'm excited. But hey, hit us up in the hot box, joshtalkwrestling@gmail.com if you happen to have the ratings. Although we'll probably hear it. But it's usually like sort of the following week or something on a Sunday, Monday. I think they have preliminary stuff like the next morning. But then like the official number is like what?
It takes some time, I know. Yeah.
Probably in the next week or something. So yeah, we'll probably know by the time you get to us. But hey, what else is going on? Survivor Series is looming. What are your thoughts?
I'm kind of...
Who's going to win? Who do you think's going to win? NXT, Raw, or SmackDown?
If you really want to put NXT over, I'd say give them the win.
That's what I think needs to happen, a clean sweep.
Yeah, really establish them as... Like, don't bury Raw and SmackDown in, like, complete, like, total devastation.
Well, Raw is going to get buried.
But NXT, well, yeah. Probably.
Raw is the C show.
And no matter what, NXT needs to come out on top if you want to really establish them as something that the average Joe casual fans, the people that unfortunately outnumber the hardcore fans, make them realize they need to watch this as well.
Isn't that something like when you listen to the audiences, listen to the audience for AEW? Just try to focus on the audience. And for AEW, and then you listen to like something on SmackDown or Raw. Now, I'm going to sans NXT, but you listen to Raw or SmackDown, it's like people are sitting on their hands. Or it's like they just know when to go, yeah, USA, USA,
yeah.
USA.
Yeah.
Dude, I was at the Allstate Arena. This is, I'm actually embarrassed to say this as a Chicagoan. I was at the Allstate Arena during a Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn match, and some asshole behind me goes, USA, USA. I turn and go, they're both from Canada.
Yeah.
They're both from Canada.
Yes.
How do you not know that? It's a different country.
Oh, people.
That person probably lived in Chicago, too. That's why I'm embarrassed to admit that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, but Survivor Series is looming. I think NXT should go over clean sweep if they're really going to make us the show.
Yeah.
And obviously, like I mentioned before, Raw is the C show, SmackDown's the A show, and NXT is the B show. It is. NXT is better than Raw. Yeah. I think that's actually a fact. I'm saying it as an opinion, but prove me wrong.
Scientifically proven in a lab.
But I think NXT is going to go over. But, what do you think about the WWE Championship? I sort of mentioned last week how I think really the way out of this is somehow Rey Mysterio actually wins, and maybe like Brock Lesnar goes nuts and just like breaks Rey Mysterio in half, like Juggernaut and Deadpool, right? Just destroys him. Then they have like this, Raw tournament to determine the new world champion, as it were.
I love that.
Yeah. So like, yeah, as like world champion. And then like people that may actually watch Monday Night Raw again. If you have this like, have like a 64 person tournament, I don't know, or 32 or something, for the next world champion. So that's maybe, to me, that's the only way they go with, because if Brock Lesnar wins, it's like, yeah, so what? He proved nothing.
Yeah.
He proved nothing. And I think Cain Velasquez could help out somehow, There is sort of that thought where like maybe Dominic will come and interfere and sort of cost Rey Mysterio the match. But I don't know. At this point, Dominic is set to report to the Performance Center in like, I don't know, less than a year. I don't know why they would include him in a major storyline if he's just going right to the Performance Center, So I don't know. We'll see how that's going to pan out. But to me, it's like I feel like Rey Mysterio will somehow get do a Hurricanrana to a pinfall, 1, 2, 3 out of nowhere. Brock Lesnar goes nuts, destroys Rey Mysterio. Because I thought last time I thought Rey Mysterio was injured. It wasn't he on a sling or something at Crown Jewel?
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, it makes sense to win maybe one match. and then he has to go in actual surgery or something. Brock Lesnar destroys him. You're putting over Brock Lesnar still, and then have this tournament, and then you probably what you have happen is Brock Lesnar wins the damn tournament again.
Oh man,
full circle. Huh? What do you think about that?
Oh man, I loved everything up to the part where Brock Lesnar wins the tournament.
All right. Well, Seth Rollins does. And everyone boos. What do you think about that?
Well, everybody boos, and then they just use a clip from a October 26th episode of Raw and slap it in there.
I actually, so I was telling you that, as far as pre-show, that I thought that was interesting because when I was watching that, I was watching Raw, and I was like, there was something that was off because the commentators kept mentioning like the crowd. It's like, wow, the crowd is really all sorts right now, and I'm like, I heard nothing. Yeah. It sounds like nothing is actually going on, which is really weird for this type of crowd. And then I read that online report. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have like Seth Rollins, who's kind of becoming the guy you love to hate, like John Cena.
Yeah.
What sucks though is, and I always thought John Cena, while he may have not been the world's best wrestler, I don't think he was a horrible wrestler. People said, oh, he had his 5 moves. Well, when you're kind of produced that way when you're the face of the company. You sort of have your 5 moves. That's what you do. You got to protect yourself from injuries. And then also, that's what people come to expect. You're sort of guiding the masses as that type of persona when you are the face of the company. Well, I kind of think the same situation is prevalent here with Seth Rollins. Well, people, I think, have exposed him for being the mouthpiece to Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
He's the cheerleader for Vince McMahon, and that's what people don't like. I think he's a great wrestler. I think most people agree he has to be one of the best wrestlers in the world right now, if not the best. When you take everything into consideration, I know Kenny Omega's on the on AEW saying, hey, if Seth Rollins is on my show, he would be on the kickoff show.
Oh.
I don't really agree with that.
Yeah.
But I would love to see a Seth Rollins Kenny Omega match. That would be pretty awesome, right?
Maybe one day.
But so people are kind of getting they're booing Seth Rollins now, but not because he's a horrible wrestler per se. It's just that they know he's the mouthpiece of Vince McMahon, and that's the price you pay when you're the man or the woman.
Yeah.
Is you're contracted to WWE. You are for lack of a better word, you are the yes person. You are the role model. You are the beacon, and you're under contract to do anything you can. So that's the sacrifice. Like I mentioned before, you're rewarded handsomely, but you're giving up your soul and your life for WWE to make a shitload of money.
Yeah.
But it's what you got to do,
But you know what? If you're doing it right, you don't get booed. No, I'm not putting that all on Seth. I'm just saying, like, the way WWE's pushing him and, and everything more so than even Seth I'm blaming here. But, when you got to stoop to literally editing some stuff because the fan reaction was so negative, like, what is the point at that point? Like,
why even edit? Why not try to fix it? If your fan base is saying something, it's like, I understand Vince McMahon works for the board and there's sponsors and so on and so forth, but there's got to be a better happy medium. Right?
Yeah.
You can appease those as far as parties, and then also you can appease your fan base. And I think when you have like these no contests in a Hell in a Cell match, I think people also think that Seth Rollins had influence in that too. From what I've heard, it's Vince McMahon, but who knows? A lot of people believe Seth Rollins had maybe some influence because if you are the guy, you should be able to, as far as move things around as you need. But that's the thing. Actually, it doesn't really matter who the guy is or the man or the woman. It really matters what McMahon is running, that's the thing. It comes down to Vince McMahon in the WWE. So I don't know. It to me, it bothers me that they edit, but to me, it just comes down to this, is that I don't honestly understand why they're doing it. To me, it's a signal to fix something.
Well, it's like you're patching up the wrong area here. You know what I mean?
Well, and fans have phones. Like, what were they thinking? This is eventually going to be found out. If you did this once, okay. But at some point, it's going to get found out, and it's going to be all over the internet, and then you're going to look really stupid.
That's the thing. They keep doing stuff like this, and it's just like, we're going to find out. People are going to notice. We're watching you, Vince. And it's like he doesn't realize.
Well, it's it's weird too. So I was watching SmackDown last night, and it's weird. The main event was Miz TV, which I like Miz TV. The whole hard hitting questions. I've always been a fan of the Miz. So I had the Miz, had Daniel Bryan, and Bray Wyatt shows up in a slice, what I would call a slice of the Firefly Funhouse, just basically saying like, hey, I'll be watching, and so will he, as as far as referencing the Fiend.
Right.
The Fiend never shows up at all, and just sort of explains Daniel Bryan saying that I'm sort of torn who I am, and so on and so forth. And that's why, Bray Wyatt is also torn as he is, and that's what attracted him to me. Something along those lines. And basically also said that he's not going to join Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura's little crew, which is all good. So that was sort of like all this kind of happened throughout the night on Miz TV. But to me, it was weird. Like the main event, there was not actually like, to me, there wasn't like really a main event, a wrestling match. However, I heard there's a dark match that followed right after, and Bray Wyatt was part of it. Apparently, they're just having Bray Wyatt do DQ matches on the dark matches, and then just wrestling on a pay-per-view. It's like you have to pay. It's like Triple H in the early 2000s. You got to pay to watch Triple H to wrestle, you know? He never wrestled in like Raw or something. He just come out and beat someone up, and that's it. If you actually want him to wrestle, you got to like tune in and, watch Fully Loaded or something, like, so that's the thing. It's like, I don't know, but yeah, here we go. Like, again, a situation, I'm just like, why are you doing that? Like, I think you could have The Fiend still do the dark match and still do like an appearance, like, because that's what people wanted. Again, I got to think there's a method to the madness. It's WWE, right? But yeah, I don't know. It's one of the things that bother me. I have to assume that The Fiend will retain over Daniel Bryan. Yeah, other than that, the traditional Survivor Series matches and all that, I got to believe it. Like NXT should do a clean sweep. Make it, if you really want to make it a main roster, clean sweep, or maybe have SmackDown somehow like get one in or something, because it is the flagship show. Although they generally speaking, when they had like Raw and SmackDown, Raw was the flagship show. SmackDown generally won like Survivor Series and Royal Rumbles to sort of like even it out a little bit, because Raw was always considered like the show. So yeah, no, I think it's a good move overall in WWE stand with Monday nights and Friday nights, because Monday night's so saturated with TV. There's so much TV on Monday nights. It's just not what it used to be. However, Friday night is actually the least amount watched TV all week long. No one watches TV on Friday night. Why not try to create your own night?
Right.
And people actually, for the longest time, when SmackDown was on Tuesday, people like, that were fair weather fans or didn't know about wrestling, they'd be like, oh yeah, and who's still on Friday night SmackDown? And I'm like, oh, well, it's on Tuesdays now. So people, I think, it was almost like SmackDown was never on Tuesday nights. It was just always on Friday night. So, yeah, I'm kind of cool with like some of those things they do, but yeah, I don't know. Some of these top end things like Seth Rollins, the whole editing and not having the Fiend show up and just do these dark matches and try to keep them off TV. It's like, why not? This is what we want. We want to have fun. I feel like, when I think about Rusev and Lana and Bobby Lashley, that's a huge missed opportunity. They had the whole, like when they were in the restaurant a couple weeks ago, that could have been a fun hardcore restaurant match. Kind of like, the supermarket match between Booker T and Stone Cold Steve Austin. They could have actually had a great choreographed street fight within the restaurant. And I could just see something like Rusev saying 86 on Bobby Lashley and just throwing him to like the kitchen or something,
Yeah,
like
there you go.
They could have had some fun with that, so that's the one thing I would say is have fun with these storylines. And we see with AEW too, they're rushing these storylines. I gave the example of MJF earlier. They're rushing these storylines. Slow down. Let us really enjoy it, especially if you're AEW, because the fans are behind you. The fans are, you could come out with probably crap and they'd be like, well, you're trying. We understand that. We're still for you, AEW, AEW. But the thing is, time is money, and I read this interview with Eric Bischoff, who estimates, and this is, Eric Bischoff has run an organization obviously before. Eric Bischoff, of course, is the president of WCW, worked with WWE quite a bit. He actually believes that it's about $400,000 per episode to produce.
Okay.
So that's almost $500,000.
Yeah.
So time is money. So they really have to look at each show as a good opportunity. And I feel like AEW is doing that. I feel like SmackDown and Raw sometimes just kind of floating. But I feel it with NXT, and kind of circling back to what I mentioned before. I'm excited to watch AEW. I'm excited to watch NXT. Kind of excited to watch SmackDown. And I'm not excited at all to watch Raw.
It's just you got the hungry younger crowd versus the established complacent dinosaurs, basically. I hate to say it. I don't want to disparage anybody on the roster, but at least the production team and the writing and the booking and everything is just, they're still just floundering out there. They're just kind of like you said, they're kind of floating around. I mean, we're always going to watch the more explosive, group. I mean, AEW has a lot to prove. And I think every wrestler that ever appears on there knows that, and they're just pushing themselves to the limit. Same thing with NXT, because they want to get to that point. They want to get to WrestleMania. They got all the stepping stones and whatnot. Of course, yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Well, the thing about it too is that I feel like there's other federations that we should be introducing to this conversation too. Like NWA Power, they are killing it. They are killing it. Like I really every show. If you haven't watched NWA Power, you should. I think they're up to 6 episodes now.
Something like that.
You can get them all on YouTube, and they've all been awesome. I've watched every single one of them. They come out Tuesdays, I believe, 4:00 Central, 5:00 Eastern. You can find them right away on YouTube. So no, it's every one of them is solid. You get to see great workers like Nick Aldis. You get to see as far as Eli Drake and Eddie Kingston, Ken Anderson. It was kind of refreshing to see Mr. Kennedy and of course Damian Sandow has been hilarious on the show, and really it's great wrestling. It's because they really have to be really efficient with their space, because I believe the ring is like 16 by 16, which at WWE is typically 20 by 20. This is studio style wrestling, so it has to be a little bit smaller.
Yeah,
but no, it's NWA Power is killing it. I really wish I had a chance to watch Impact Wrestling. I don't have Axe TV. I actually have cable, but there's not an opportunity for my provider to carry it. I've actually thought about getting their subscription. They have it's like I don't know, like $70 a year or something.
Oh, okay, like a specific app.
It's like basically a network. Yeah, It's basically the TNA network. Well, the TNA/Impact network.
Sure.
It shows all the videos and whatnot and archives from TNA Wrestling, which is now, of course, officially known as Impact. But my heart has always like been TNA. It's kind of like what Jeff Jarrett started, and as TNA evolved into Impact. But it's really sort of one of the same. But there's a lot of great stuff going down there, and I wish I could watch that. But it's one of those things that I wonder, like, we have all these opportunities to watch this wrestling. How far will you go? We're talking about Full Gear. One thing I'm interested in, we were also talking about Dynamite. I'm interested to see if their past week, if their ratings went up or if they're going to keep going decline. Yes, if they're satisfied with the ratings, that's great. But if you're always on a constant decline, that means you're going to hit zero at some point, right? You got to turn it around. You got to go up and down or keep going up, ideally. So I'm actually wondering, I'm really curious to see what their latest TV ratings were, but I'm also curious to see the buy rate for Full Gear.
Yeah, buy rates for the pay-per-views were going down too.
Well, that's the thing, is fans right now, they are used to paying $9.99 a month for wrestling. Yeah. And that is why they see something like, Impact, like, okay, I might be able to do that, but to pay $50-$60 for a pay-per-view, fans are not ready for that, one. And two, the other thing too, I'm just going to say right now, there's a lot of piracy out there. So it's one of those things we have to determine, like, hey, like, I am getting this for free, but like also they're not getting paid. It's sort of that double-edged sword, right? Right. I mean, that's just it's a whole thing we have to like battle with ourselves. So and that's the thing, is I'm not pointing fingers. Everyone does it. Everyone does it. Someone's listening right now. Do it. Everyone's done it with something. All right. So that's the thing. Everyone's done it with something, but it's something you have to think about. Is that everyone watched it, but did they actually like pay for it? And that's the thing, is like that actually, if we're talking business, we mentioned before, Eric Bischoff thinks each show is $400,000. I'm guessing a pay-per-view is a flat half. Yeah. Right? Like, they got to make that money back. If they're not making money, they're going to eventually lose out. So hopefully though, they're making money with merchandise, they're making money with tickets. I mean, they're selling out. They're selling out their arenas, which is cool. Again, in some regards, I don't want to think it is, but it could easily become the next, new little shiny toy of the wrestling community. But to that end, I would like to say that the fans been tuning in on a weekly basis. The fans that are in attendance are like really into it, and they're in different cities, different regions. That's something to think about. Like NXT, at least at some point, we will Full Sail. Really, how you get new tickets is like you sort of get in this kind of lottery. You suddenly get a ticket, and then NXT tickets, they go on sale right after that next show. So if you're already in there, you literally leave and go to the box office and buy a ticket for the next show. That's how it is, kind of this revolving door. So a lot of the same fans of NXT stick around. They're in the area as well too. Sure. But think about Dynamite. They're getting these explosive crowds, and they're in different regions, cities. We're talking Chicago. We're talking down south. We're talking east, west, north, all over. And people are there and they're cheering. So that's really refreshing. So I think AEW is doing some good things. It's just we got to be there to support it. And if nothing else, it's one of those things. As a fan, you have to make that sort of commitment. Like, do you want to do that? And I think we're in a city. And this is not the fans' fault. I'm not really pointing fingers. I just think that we're stuck in now a model where we're used to paying $9.99 a month for all the wrestling we want, and to pay $50 for a pay-per-view, that can be a lot of money for people. I mean, $50, I shop at Aldi's, and $50 will get you food for 4 months there. Yeah.
That's a tall order, $50 for a 4-hour pay-per-view. And I mean, just like any other business, they have to compete. Well, if your competition is able to offer this, a wrestling product, $9.99 a month, and you get a smorgasbord, and that includes every pay-per-view. Right. AEW just needs to somehow figure out some kind of way. I would pay $9.99 a month for AEW if I knew that there was a pay-per-view, every month.
Well, what if WWE had started at $19.99 a month? I probably would have still paid for it. But now it's hard to go back up. See, that's the thing. You always want to start up higher and go lower. But
the more hardcore fans would have still stuck with it, but you'd lose the casuals. That $10 has a real nice ring to it. You know what I mean?
Well, they say with infomercials that if you want to make thousands, you'll charge like $19.99. If you want to make millions, you'll charge $9.99 because people just naturally see that and it's like, oh, I can. That's one less. That's one less number.
$10. Yeah, exactly.
It's not. No, it's not $10.
Even,
it's $9.
It's a penny less.
It's $9. What I saw. Yeah. I didn't see the 99 cents. It's $9.
It's true.
I just paid $9, Josh. So that's the thing. It's like I think that, and I'm not just pointing fingers at the fans here. I mean, $50, that's a lot for folks to cough up. And I think about UFC, it's the same situation there. I mean, those pay-per-views are expensive. It's a lot for people to cough up. And maybe that's what the AEW is trying to do with their Saturday night pay-per-views is have people sort of meet up and have like sort of everyone pitch in and have these types of gatherings. But yeah, it's a situation you have to sort of look at from all sorts of angles. You want to support the company, but kind of those variables, again, not pointing fingers, but anyway.
I'm going to buy a t-shirt to try and offset anything I've done.
Hey, we're not pointing fingers here. We're not pointing any fingers here, so it is a discussion that needs to be made. I remember I saw an Austin Aries promo on, this is when it was TNA Impact, not just Impact, it was TNA Impact. And he looked up at the camera during a pay-per-view and said, just like you who are illegally streaming this and call yourself fans. And I was like, damn, dude, that's some real shit. Oh crap. But it's honest, and it's how wrestlers get paid. It's how their likeness gets paid, and so on and so forth. So, but it's one of those where, if you want to support the company, it's how you support them. And we talk about this all the time too. Like with WWE, we had this whole show about how Crown Jewel, how to fix it. And everyone knows kind of the layers of crap with Crown Jewel. If people are really ticked, they would just uninstall the network app. I'm not watching Raw again. I saw the Hell in a Cell. I'm done with WWE. I'm done. I'm not watching Raw. Yeah, and then you watch Raw the next night.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like we talk about how, we want to give divas a chance and all that. Okay, that's great. But what about benefits and stuff for all the workers? That sort of came up with a John Oliver thing, and then it's just gone.
It faded away too.
That's on us. That's on us, the fans. Yep. We should be in the arenas chanting that stuff. We should be chanting that stuff, and that's on us because we know that the workers are under contract. They can't really say much. To what we said before, right. I'm sure a lot of New Day probably has a lot they want to say, but they're under contract. They can't do that. I'm sure Randy Orton has a lot more they want to say. There's so many things they want to say, but they can't because they're under contract. That's where we should step up and do something for them. And we supposedly got this whole divas, give divas a chance thing. Although I'm pretty sure that's a double-edged sword. Right? You're happy it happened because it needed to happen. The women's revolution, that's about 50 years too late. That should have been going on for a while. I mean, they've shown for quite a while that 40% of the demographic of pro wrestling fans is female.
Yep.
40%. We're just now getting around to this revolution. That's bullshit. Anyway, I'm glad it's happening.
Sure.
But I also
too late,
think,
yeah,
I'm glad it's happening. Right. Better late than never. But that being said, WWE, I'm sure they saw some dollar signs in this as well too. So they sort of push us along, but of course the benefits, I don't think they see as many dollar signs. But we as wrestling fans should be speaking up. We sit there and complain about this and about Crown Jewel and all that. Well, if we really cared, we would uninstall the WWE app.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to say, right? Because there's so many things we love about WWE. We wouldn't get to see all these workers. We wouldn't be able to support the wrestling, wrestlers. So I think that is a solution. Is what you mentioned earlier. Is AEW's got to get their own app, so it's an all-inclusive thing,
right?
And you get all the pay-per-views, and I think it's a model the wrestling community is used to, and I think it's gonna be really hard to switch it over to having people pay $50 for a pay-per-view again.
Yeah, no, you just have to adapt. They're
just gonna stream it.
Seriously, if you want to survive, that's gonna have to be your model, is figuring something out, because we're just not gonna pay that much. And maybe you can make your money up in volume. What I mean? But I can't swing $50 for every couple months.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And the thing is nowadays you're in the stream basically of wrestling. You know what I mean? If you're a wrestling fan, you're watching. Just like you were saying, you're always watching Raw and SmackDown every week, no matter how shitty it is, no matter what shady dealings WWE has. You're hooked. You're into this. You're passionate. And you love this, so you're always going to keep watching it. But it's a lot harder to get into the stream of, say, the AEW side of things, because their ecosystem isn't this easily accessed, affordable thing. Piracy is definitely there, but honestly, I think most pirates would agree that it's it's just easier. They'd just rather pay the $10 a month. It's more convenient. It's easier. Everything's higher quality.
Safer. People are getting paid.
Safer. Everybody gets paid. You know what you're getting.
Right.
They'd rather pay, but if you don't give people something that they've grown accustomed to, if you can't compete, they are going to look at other avenues. That's just their job. Unfortunately, they don't owe you anything as a consumer.
Well, it's like you have Amazon and suddenly you're going with a small business. They're like, well, you have to come pick it up. We have the same price as Amazon, but you have to come pick it up. Now, yes, if you're eco-friendly, go pick it up. But the way we live our lives nowadays, you need the delivery, the free delivery, and the 5% off through Amazon's card.
We can't go back.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's hard to go back. So I do think the solution there is, I agree with you. I think got to get their own app. I know they're probably working on those things. There's already been rumbles about a video game and all that. So I think they'll eventually get around, but it's something they got to think about. And they are listening to their fans. I think in some regard they listen to their fans, but honestly, Josh, I think about like their women's division. It's the workers they have are good, but I feel like they got to expand that so much more.
Yeah.
I just mentioned before, 40% demographic is in fact female. So I think you need to cater that. And I mentioned also before, I think it's 50 years too late. I think it's probably a millennia too late, to be honest. I think that, we as men and women honestly haven't been equal for quite some time. So we are seeing some tides in that as far as the winds of change, but we got a long way to go on that. But anyway, just to clarify that, even getting to AEW again, I think that some low-hanging fruit where it's like you've got 40% of your demographic is women. And listen, people love to see good wrestlers,
Yeah.
And I know there's great female wrestlers out there, so you need to get some, as far as you need to build it out a little more. Again, that's kind of the whole thing I was mentioning with like where they could have gone with Kylie Ray. As far as she's that organic baby face, you could have built it around her. But again, I don't know. She went back to the Indies for a while. She was actually on Impact, Bound for Glory, their big thing in their battle royal. So, but I think that they do need to. AEW's got to build their women's division out more. Now you saw Kong, so that's someone you can build sort of the federation or AEW around, and she's out there. She with her time on Glow and all that, she is becoming a household name, and her time with WWE. So and they're pairing her up with Brandy Rhodes. That is not a bad pairing at all. I think it's gonna be great. I'm really intrigued to see where they're going with this.
Oh, I think it's terrific. I'd love to see if she built a stable around that.
Stable, and I mean this is a person they can build the women's division around. So this is cool. So this is hopefully, it sounds like they are listening to the fans, which is something that I don't know that WWE always does. Right. But again, they have different bosses, right? But I think that AEW does listen to the fans, and hopefully we'll get that. So what else, man? What else?
The last thing is just Vince. I know you listen to the show religiously, so I know you're listening right now.
He was really Nick, wasn't he?
He was Nick from last week requesting the Raw review.
The review, yeah, dude. That was awesome.
I don't have cable, so I have to watch SmackDown and Raw on Hulu the next night, which is fine. But ever since SmackDown Live came to Fox, it's taken up to an entire additional day for it to come to SmackDown. It's supposed to come the next day. Back in my day, when it was on Sci-Fi, I could count on it being there at about 9:30 a.m. the next day. Right. So it was part of my morning routine. I looked forward to it. I would get up, I'd do my thing, get ready, put on SmackDown and or Raw and see what's going on. And you ruined it, guys. I don't know what the hell the deal with Fox is, but I can't get the show regularly, and we got to stay updated on this stuff just as a fan, not just as a podcaster, Vince, but as a fan. I don't know what the deal is, but get your shit together, Fox, Hulu, and WWE.
The thing about that, that's a really good point, Josh, but here's the problem. Vince McMahon no longer listens to the show. His new favorite podcast is After the Bell. I got you good. But no, to your point, though, it's like if you're really looking for subscribers, why not have Raw and SmackDown live? Like work a deal out with USA and Fox. Pay them some more money. You've got it. You just think about the user acquisitions you would get with people like for $9.99, got Raw and SmackDown. They didn't have to worry about like Hulu. They didn't have to worry about, as far as they didn't have to worry about like waiting the next day or getting cable. Make the deals with the companies. Maybe, it might be what it is WWE has a huge deal with Hulu to exclusively go there first or something. I don't know.
Something like that.
It could be something worked out like that, but just pay everyone and make the accessibility there for those that pay. To me, it doesn't make any sense why those shows aren't on the network right away, or at least not even live. I mean, I get from there's contracts, but like USA, for example, just think about this. Like if people can watch it on USA and the network app, they're watching USA advertising for their shows, and they can get transferred back to like, as far as the USA app or something. Like there's things to be worked at. There's a win-win situation for everyone here involved. So yeah, I'm surprised they don't do that. Another thing too is I noticed, and I mentioned this pre-show, 205 and Main Event, they're no longer like showing those on the network.
Yeah, that's surprising.
They're standalone. They're webisodes. They're not on any network TV outside of WB Network. So I don't know why they're not there. So that's interesting too. But as always, you hear it here first. So no, I mean it's been a heck of a week. But Josh, you got anything else for us, buddy?
That's all for now. Tell your friends to subscribe. You subscribe. Tell your mom to subscribe. Give her a call. She hasn't heard from me in a while. She's had that surgery. You want to see if she's doing okay. But also get her to subscribe. Yeah, hit us up in the hot box. Josh and Josh, talkwrestling@gmail.com. Be kind. Be cool with each other. Love each other. We'll talk to y'all soon. Have a good night, everybody.